Alright, deep dive number 3 is in the books, and it has been shallow like a kid's pool. But I feel like they are hiding something from us, and I have some little evidences for that. However, in the deep dive there were actually some interesting bits I'm gonna do a speed run of first. The new lighting has actually been confirmed to be global illumination and is powered by actual ray tracing. You do need though a potent card for that, meaning an RTX card or an equivalent from AMD. Staff zones can now easily be painted instead of clicking yourself through a bajillion menus. Well, and before we continue, quick note from our sponsor Instant Gaming. If you want to test out, for example, Planet Coaster or some other DLCs before you jump into the new game, make sure to check out the Instant Gaming link in the description. They have a brilliant support, this is all fully reliable, and you can obviously find everything you need. And if you don't know exactly what to do, you can also get yourself some money to spend on your favorite games in your favorite other accounts such as Xbox Live or PlayStation. So check the link in the description and make sure to check out which kind of offers they have in store for you. Now back to our speedrun. You can now choose every single ingredient of your food, which will also have an effect on your guests' needs and intolerances, which is a new part of the game now. Weather will actually have an effect onto your guests. The only thing confirmed we know of is heat being an effect on your guests and rain, so that causes them to use umbrellas, but there will be more to it as they said. Staff members will only be paid for the working hours actually. If they do breaks or are not hired for the moment, they will not be paid, which gives you a bit more of a handling over your cost. We got a first look at our restrictions that we can set to certain areas of the park, such as not being able to build there or not being able to build certain rides in a certain area. This very showcase was built on a top of a mountain, which seems to be a pretty new map in a mountainish biome. The 2 new mascots have been actually showed off. They also showed us a glimpse of the new rides coming with the deluxe pack. And we talked a lot about heat maps, heat maps, heat maps, and heat maps. And obviously we saw a whole bunch of stuff that we have already seen in the various playtests. So let's slow down a moment and look at what we've also seen, or not seen, maybe, in this very deep dive, and this is the stations. Now, I said during my live stream that at least we could see that the monorail station seems to be in a shuttle mode right now because it's a longer station. I didn't mean necessarily that it's a longer station. We knew that we can make longer stations, but in the playtest I wasn't even able to make a shuttle in the monorail or the other small monorail ride we had. So I'm happy to see that this is happening. However, we also saw that at least during the deep dive, not in the real-time section, they actually showed off a very broken dive coaster station, which I have on screen right now. The reason why I have it on screen is because the coaster car itself, the train, stops in an odd position. And if you look closely, the people are exiting the ride via the entrance, and the exit is on the same side actually than the exit is, but there is no particular exit lane. So this could either be a bug or the fact that they're still working on it. And there's also another hint to why I strongly believe that they're still working on it. We have seen multiple confirmations now, and including the text on the website, that the FD Vision, the so-called Omnimover, we have to talk about that in a second, actually has a conveyor belt as a boarding station. Now, this may not seem to be a big info, but the fact that they avoided to showcase that one specifically, despite talking about dark rides, despite talking about the new global illumination, despite highlighting the fact they have dark rides now, and they already showed that to us in a small little sneak peek on their socials, it is relatively odd to me why they avoided that yet again. So let me just phrase that correctly, because you guys in the comments will otherwise mention that a bajillion times. This is fully guessing over here right now, okay? I'm guessing by some things I saw in here, and there is a lot of hope involved in my guessing. And I just want to phrase that even further and give you a bit of context. I do think that this game is absolutely on track to become a very great successor. We have to talk about the UI. We don't do that in this video because that was also part of this deep dive, talking about the UI. I mean, part of the UI, because there was a lot of white space we talked about or didn't talk about. However, at the end of the day, there were some more hints now, at least in my opinion, in my very personal opinion, that there is more to it. If you have watched all the content closely, they have been tiptoeing around the stations a lot. And even in the playtest, we didn't really have all the elements in all the trains already. They did confirm that to us. It's been an old version we've been playing on. And even in this deep dive, they labeled this as the August version of the game. We are now already at the end of September, so they don't really say what type of August version we're talking about. We could talk about the 1st of August, and that's a 2-month-old version of the game they are showcasing right now. And you know, you have to record the deep dives and have to cut them and have to make them ready. So it is fair to say, because people were mentioning we are only 2 months away from the launch, or actually less than that. It's been, actually it's just a month and a bit, to be honest, but it's not that you have seen the version as it is right now, okay? So there is still a lot of time in between that we have to see. And I really feel like they have been listening so much to the community, like so much, like basically to everything. And the only thing they literally didn't touch at all are the stations. And by not at all, I mean not at all. And this is what got me a little bit confused. If you wouldn't touch them, why are they so broken? And why do they have all these glitches we saw in the playtest? Why do they have all the glitches now, even in a deep dive, in a pre-recorded deep dive? Why do they avoid the conveyor belt to showcase this off? Why do they specifically avoid all these rides that theoretically would have the need of a new one, River Rapids, for example, or also Log Flume, like to just name a few? And like, I'm not even talking about transfer tracks, okay? Don't get me wrong. I think the game would be easily able to survive without them. They would be a nice little thing, and if you integrate that into the management, I do buy that. But it's not the end of the day if it isn't in, because you can still do a lot with, you know, custom stuff and so on. However, and this is the bit that got me a bit more intrigued, at least having a loading and an unloading station for me personally would be mega relevant, because this is definitely something super realistic and would help to build more realistic stuff. Obviously, I would love my dual stations, you know, big fan of Big Thunder Mountain in Disneyland Paris, for example, so I gotta build that one. But also, if you look at Paris, you also would have Space Mountain that has a dual station, and just so many iconic rides across the world that feature a dual station, for example. Or there are even more iconic rides that have, or it's actually way more common nowadays, specifically with heavy theming, to have an unload and unload area, you know, while you have that with Fly, for example, the new launch flying coaster in Phantasialand, just to mention one. And partially on Terran as well, even though you could kind of do that on with the stations that we have, just by, you know, separating the areas a bit more. But like having really two separate stations, one for onboarding, one for offboarding, is for me a very important bit, because I think it shouldn't be too difficult to do. And this is why it kept me, I keep saying that this is oddly, worrying is not the right word, but it's oddly confusing to why they're tiptoeing around. Like, if you're confident that this is the thing, just plays down all the rides. Why wouldn't you? So this really is the last bit of hope I have. Yes, I know that the next deep dive will be all around sharing your creations and the workshop and so on. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't be able to put that in there. I mean, you could literally just showcase how you create a blueprint of that ride with a transfer track and with something else, and just label it like, oh, look, you know, if people are so casual, they want to just place down a ride, you can create it. But the nerds can come in and build whatever they want with a crazy transfer track and all the management aspects, and then you're good to go. See, that would be an easy way to integrate that in a deep dive like this. So I am at least hopeful a little bit that there is more to it. Also, because there's one thing we didn't talk about. So this deep dive also brought in a brand new staff member we haven't really talked about too much, and that is the ride operator. Yes, we do have the ride operator now in-game as a staff member. Full stop. That's an intentional break over here, a little pause, because there's literally nothing they do other than just being on the ride at their shift. And this is, again, why the heck would you do that? This is so meaningless. Like, it's why it's like literally the one is there. Okay, they need to go on break and come back, and so you can have a bit of off time that no one is on the ride. So what was that? Is the ride closed when that is happening? What's the big deal, you know? Because everything is automated. I'm not even saying they have the ride operator now control the restraints, for example, or control anything else, but like, it is so confusing. It would be actually, like, I know this is way too far into guessing, but imagine a coaster, depending on what you do with the coaster, needs 2, 3, 4, even 5 ride operators to actually ride properly. And then if you have a bit more of a busy day, you need even that more. So have 2 of them, for example, control the restraints, and then have another 2 of them making sure the operation works. And like, I'm fine with 2. I'm fine with 1 if the one operator does some more stuff. But why would you make them an actual functioning staff member if they don't do anything else than just being there? I mean, the people, the vendors, they actually sell stuff, you know, that makes kind of sense. They do sell stuff, and being in the shop and selling stuff, what else should they do? But like a ride operator, why would you make them? So all these kind of things together, make me hopeful that there's more to it. Just a little bit more to it. And the ingredients, as always, as I'm always saying, the ingredients are there. So please, Frontier, make us the very good, tasty Caesar salad. I beg you. Oh, and by the way, we did talk about heat maps. I mentioned that earlier. There was one little option where they didn't show us the third option under operations. I just wonder why. Other than that, I will say I'm very proud of Frontier's, maybe also not the right word, but I am proud of Frontier that they managed to squeeze over an hour of content out of actually not that many news in there. I mean, for the people who love management and micromanagement, this one would have been a great one. But I briefly want to touch upon UI, even though I said I won't, but I briefly need to touch upon that. People have been relatively mean in the comments when I made this video a month ago that I'm quite worried about this. People were like, hey, you're too negative. Hey, you're like, blah, blah, blah. See, the point is, I knew what I was playing and I knew what I've seen and what I've experienced. And now after people saw this deep dive, like the whole mood has changed towards like, oh yeah, maybe that UI isn't good. So just to, and this is why I wanted to quickly touch upon that, just to reiterate on that, I still believe this game is going to be a banger. The UI, though, will be, at least at the beginning, a big part of potentially a process to make it perfect. I strongly believe if the game would be released this way, we would be standing in front of a big issue, at least when it comes to the progress in the game we can make. That would actually hinder us from being very productive. And Frontier will have to listen to us, and they will. I'm sure they will, and they will improve upon that one. So I'm hopeful, but I just wanted to quickly put that into perspective. It's not a deal breaker for me necessarily, even though the couple of little building related things are, but I'm quite sure they fixed that one first. And the rest is just kind of the game looks amazing. And we're talking about the cherry on the cake right now. If the different stations are in the game, that would be absolutely amazing. And I tell you why. This is one of the little things I do believe they wouldn't be fixing afterwards. This is why it's so important to me. Making the stations at least somewhat different now would kind of bring us to the point that they have touched upon that. If they didn't, or if they wouldn't for the future, I have a feeling this is not necessarily something you would go into later on, because you would then need to change all the rides, which I do believe they don't. So let's hope they touch upon the stations and give us a lot more realistic stations. That would be amazing. But let's end this video here, because that's more than enough squeezed out of this very shallow deep dive, unfortunately. But I hope you found this interesting. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think? Are they going to work on stations? And if so, let me know what kind of specifically you want from stations. What is your go-to element you want to see for stations? Is it also the separate onloading and offloading? Is it, or onboarding and offloading? Or is it like really having complicated new types of boarding stations? Whatever, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching as always, and if you haven't subscribed and you want to have more info about this game or Planet Zoo or other games, make sure to subscribe and help me reach that 100k. Thank you so much for your support, and have a wonderful weekend, wonderful day, wonderful morning, evening, whatever time you have while watching. Enjoy your time, and goodbye.